Today it's a delight to be with you again to go through our discussion on logistics management. Today we are going to focus our attention on customer service, but we are going to look at it primarily from the perspective of logistics management. Therefore, in this class, we are going to make every effort to look at the definition of customer service. We are going to also look at objectives and the scope of customer service. We will see the key elements of customer service in three major folds: what we call the pre-transaction element, the transaction element, and the post-transaction element. We are also going to see how we can establish a customer service strategy in our firm. We will look at the various impediments to effective customer service strategy, and then how we can improve our customer service performance, and then finally to develop a customer service plan. Now let's begin to look at a brief overview of customer service. Customers are the lifeblood of every business entity. Why? Because organizations exist to serve the needs of customers. Every organization identifies a problem and tries and solves. Therefore, the essence of existing as an organization lies in your ability to solve the problems of your clients. Therefore, your business is sustained primarily by your customers that you have. If you are able to retain your customers, then your business to a larger extent is sustainable. Just as the life of human beings depends on the blood of human beings, we also say that the life of organizations depends so much on the existence of their clients. And that is why it is very, very important to treat your customers very well. They are the reason for your existence. And for you to be retained and to be sustained over a period of time, you will need to treat your customers well. And that is the essence of today's discussion. We know that the level of customer service that we provide will greatly determine how the organization is able to retain its existing customers. In most organizations, they are able to attract new customers because of the word of mouth publicity made by their existing customers. When they have experienced good customer service, most clients or customers tend to share their experiences with their relations, their friends, their family, and other people they meet. And by so doing, they are able to attract new customers for most businesses. Therefore, your ability to retain good customers will largely affect your profitability. Your ability to retain your customers will to a large extent help your businesses to grow. Therefore, customer retention is very, very important. And it is very, very important. And research has shown that it costs 3 to 5 times more to replace than to keep your customer. Seeing it costs you more to attract, new customers than to retain it. It makes every sense that we make investment to retain our existing customers. It even costs to retain your existing customers. But what we are saying is that comparatively, it costs more to attract new customers than to retain. And that is why it is very expedient and rational for you to invest in good measures to retain your customers. And today, we want to understand how customers can really assist organizations to retain their existing customers. And that is why if you're able to differentiate yourself in the kind of customer service that you provide in the marketplace, it can be a strong source of competitive advantage. We already know that the competition in the market is now more fierce, and we see so many substitutes on the market. Your ability to stay competitive in the market depends largely on how you serve your customers. And you need to put every system in place in order to retain your customers by providing them with very, very good customer service. We know customer service is not just the domain of marketing as we usually know it to be. but it is also the output of an organization's logistics system. In fact, when you consider the four elements of the marketing mix, that is the place, the product, the price, and promotion, the one that interfaces between logistics and marketing is the place element. And over here, as we discuss customer service, we are discussing customer service to mean the place element of the marketing mix in which logistics is primarily, ensuring that its objectives are achieved. So customer service is the key interface between marketing and logistics. And there are a lot of things that are done in common in order to retain customers through this element. An organization's customer service level has a direct impact on market share, total logistics costs, and overall profitability. And if you're a firm and you want to improve and grow your business, one of the ways to go is to invest so much in your customer service and even differentiate your customer service from that of your competitors. We have already established that once you differentiate yourself with the kind of customer service you provide, it can be a very strong key, or source of competitive advantage to your organization. Now, let's begin to look at the definition of customer service. Customer service, as a combination of activities, enables a business firm to add more value to the buyer. Every customer wants value beyond the product. What value do we provide to the customer? When customer comes to buy our products, goods or services, what value do they receive beyond the tangible products? So they want the product in a particular form. They want it in a particular shape. They want it in a particular way, maybe in terms of color or taste. But beyond that, can we provide an additional value? And that is what we mean by customer service. So the kind of value that we provide beyond the tangible products that we are giving to our customer. So from a logistics perspective, we say customer service is the measure of how well the logistics system is performing in providing time and place utility for a given product or service. The key emphasis here is that the firm is able to provide two key utilities, which are time and place elements. We have already explained this in the previous model. Time utility actually is the value that the customer receives by receiving his product at a specific time. And likewise, the place element, the place utility is actually the satisfaction that the customer derives from receiving his goods at a particular place. But when we are talking about this place and time utility, we are not just merely talking about just the place as in the site or providing the products there, but even environmental issues are a part of that. And as we proceed further, we are going to discuss the details of the place to include even issues of convenience, issues of consistency, issues of accuracy, and other elements we are going to look at. So it is important that firms invest in their logistics, activities in order to ensure high level performances in both the time and place utilities that they provide to their clients. In general terms, we can say that customer service is the process of providing significant value-added benefits in terms of efficiency and effectiveness to the customer in a cost-effective manner. Remember, we emphasized two major terminologies during our first model: efficiency and effectiveness. Over here, to what we are saying is that you should be able to provide significant value-added benefits in terms of efficiency and effectiveness. Provide them with the right product at the right time, at the right place, in the right condition. And what we are saying is that the cost must also be the cost must also be right. And what we are also saying here is that it has to be a significant value addition. Your addition must be very significant, not just a small addition, but something that is significant, especially when we compare our performance with other competitors in the market in which we operate. We want it to be so significant that it can be a source of competitive advantage to your firm. So customer service is sometimes often, confused with customer satisfaction. You see, when we say customer satisfaction, it is overall, assessment of the customer in terms of the product offering of the organization. Remember, in marketing, we have understood that all four elements of the marketing mix come together to satisfy the customer, being the product, the place, the price, and then the promotion. Therefore, when we say customer satisfaction, it is the overall assessment of all four, elements of the marketing mix. But customer service only targets just one aspect of the marketing mix, which is the place. Therefore, we can conclude that customer service customer service leads to customer satisfaction. In other words, it is a subset of customer satisfaction. Therefore, customer satisfaction is broader in scope. And so customer service is not the same as customer service. It does lead to it, but it is not the sole determinant of customer satisfaction. When we go to most firms, we see that the most common customer service complaints are centered around products or quality mistakes, damaged goods, frequently cut items, late delivery, and other variables. Over here, I want to emphasize the fact that of all the various complaining issues, late delivery seems to constitute a greater portion of that. Now, when we look at the research that is done and the results of the research that is, shown on the board, you realize that late delivery constitutes about 44% of the entire complaints of customers. That shows that if firms are able to put the right measures in place and they are able to provide time utility, it can be a key source of competitive advantage for them, thereby providing them with a great opportunity to grow their businesses. It is very, very important to improve your customer service performance, especially in today's business environment. Competition has become so fierce. Now we are not just merely facing domestic or local competition. Neither is this competition only regional or national. We have even moved beyond the international to go into the global marketplace, where the competition has become even stronger than before. Seeing that lots of substitutes, organizations have no option than to improve their performances in the customer service. Because when we have a lot of substitutes in the market, you realize that brand quality usually will lose their brand power, because most leading brands will provide essentially the same quality, or price performance. Therefore, when all substitutes have essentially the same quality levels or the same prices set, what will be the variable that would influence the purchase decision of our clients? We know that one major variable that would influence the purchase decision will be availability. That is what is available on the market. And we have already said that late delivery constitutes one of the major complaints by clients. So your ability to provide your product on the market on time will be a key source of competitive advantage in this market, which is a global market now. Now we are confronted with so many foreign, organizations even existing within the local market. And it means that you need to put in every, measure in place in order to improve your customer service, which now has become a key determinant of the purchase decision of our clients. Therefore, customer service is important. It is so important that you cannot ignore it. Gone were the days that organizations had monopolistic power, and so they had the power to influence the market. But now, consumers have the most power. So your ability to manage your clients well will go a long way for you to have a competitive edge over your competitors in the market. We already established in our previous model that now the channel power has shifted from most manufacturers. It has shifted from manufacturers to even retailers within, our market. Therefore, your ability to get your products very early at the marketplace will go a long way to influence your consumers to buy your products. If you want to gain a competitive edge, as I have said, Customer service is a sure way to go. It's one of the major determinants of that. To maintain your customer loyalty will largely depend on how you treat your customers. How convenient do they find your processes to be? Do they have to queue for longer periods before they can receive a given level of service from you? Obviously, if they have to always be waiting, you are likely to lose your customers, or they can easily switch to other competitors. Therefore, customer loyalty is a major, variable you can easily improve if your customer service performance is very good. Then it's also an opportunity to increase your market share within the market if you can provide a very high performance in terms of your customer service. It's an opportunity not only in a way of retaining your existing clients, but it provides an opportunity for you to attract even more clients, especially because of the publicity that your existing customers will do by sharing their experience with their relations. Then your ability to maintain the level of satisfaction. I've already established that customer service leads to customer satisfaction. It is very important that you make it one of your major goals to satisfy your customers. After all, you exist to satisfy your customer. Your customer is the key stakeholder of your business. Therefore, you exist to make him happy. You treat him as a king, and that is the marketing orientation. And one sure way to do that is through customer service. And therefore, when you are able to improve upon your market share by attracting more and more customers, is an opportunity to receive more revenue, thereby increasing your profitability. Remember, we learned in strategic supply chain management that the value that we want to create in the supply chain, we want to maximize it. And this maximization highly depends on your ability to treat your customers very well. Then if you want an opportunity to grow your business, now we are even looking at diversification. When you have excess capacity and you want to exploit it, you have to treat your customers well in order to retain them so that you can even produce more and more. It provides an opportunity for you to penetrate into newer markets in other geographical areas. Now that we are facing so much, competition, we see different people coming from all over the world into the local market. Your ability to also penetrate other markets lies in your ability to give a very good customer service to your clients. Therefore, customer service can be viewed in three major ways. We can look at it as an activity or function itself. We can also look at it as an actual performance. And we can also look at it as an overall corporate philosophy. As an activity, we are looking at it in terms of something you can do, so that when you go to an organization, you perform, we know that this is customer service you have performed, just as we have so many activities within an organization. We can also use customer service from the perspective that we are using it to measure the performance or any activity that is based on customer service. For example, we can measure how many, orders you have been able to meet. What is the percentage within a 24-hour period? We can measure the performance. Is it 100%? Is it 98%? Is it 90%? From that perspective, then we are looking at customer service as an actual performance. And so we can say you have performed excellently or poorly or very good and what have you, depending on the criteria that is set by an organization. And then also we can say that customer service is a part of an overall corporate philosophy. When we say philosophy, it's a belief system. When an organization believes in something, they tend to practice it. And so when it's a belief system, it is part of your core values. It is part of your language. That is what employees will perform. And that is why if you want your employees to actually have very good performances in terms of the customer service that they provide to your clients, it is essential that you train them to believe in the concept of customer service. It is easier doing what you believe in than just doing what you have been instructed to do. And that is why now business organizations are speaking the language of customer service. Speed is our hallmark. High level reliability. We are dependable. These are slogans that we see coming. It's a language that is embedded in the whole philosophy of an organization. Now, let's begin to look at the elements of customer service. There are three major elements of customer service, and that is in terms of classification. We can classify the elements. We have so many elements, but they can be broadly categorized into three major elements. We have the pre-transaction element, we have the transaction element, and we also have the post-transaction element. So when we take the pre-transaction element, these are related to the organization's policies regarding customer service. So they must be in place before the organization can execute their customer service activities. What it means is that for the transaction elements, which are the actual customer service activities, the performance of them will highly be dependent upon the policies that we put in place during the pre-transaction elements. So not all of them are so much of or directly logistics, but they are essential to influence the performance of the transaction elements. So they are not all directly related to logistics, as I said, but they go a long way to influence logistics objectives. So let's look at a few of them as we go on with our discussion. Firstly, we say a written statement of customer service policy. A written statement of customer service policy. When we say you want to, have a written statement of customer service policy, it means that you develop a policy regarding the customer service that you want to provide. We have already explained that a customer service is not only viewed in terms of an activity, but it can also be viewed as a performance. So within the policy, that is where you state exactly what you want to do. To what extent do you want to provide a given level of service? So how are you going to provide it? So the policy is what regulates the activity of customer service. And usually when these statements are developed, it can be given to the customer. So we say customer provided with a written statement of the policy. The policy you have developed, give a copy to your client or communicate to the client. The essence is that when the customer knows what you are ready to give out, then he also knows what to expect. We have also, learned in quality management that usually when there's a difference between customers' expectation and the actual performance, there is a service gap. And this goes a long way to affect customer satisfaction and consequently customer loyalty and even profitability. When customers expect you to provide a given service of, let's say, about 90%, and they come and experience that, there is no gap because the expectation has been met. For example, if in your policy it is stated clearly that goods bought are delivered without a charge, it is clearly stated. Alternatively, if goods, delivered, there will be a percentage charge of about 50%, and it is clearly stated. The customer knows what he is actually buying. Therefore, there is no gap, especially when you have delivered the items and you ask the customers to pay for delivery. Then the customer does not become dissatisfied because he already knows that you have stated clearly in your policy that you are ready to receive 50% of the total charge. Therefore, whatever you are willing to give must clearly be stated as a policy. And if this policy is communicated to your clients, then there is no gap in terms of their service. And this is an opportunity to avoid unnecessary conflict with your customers. Remember, the perception of customers is very important. And therefore, when they perceive you to even be loyal or trustworthy, or you do what they expected, it builds a strong relationship between you and your clients. And we know that a good relationship is necessary to sustain the entire supply chain. One of the problems we have seen in the supply chain is that a lack of collaboration results in a bouquet effect or the magnification of the variability in orders right from downstream to upstream. Therefore, customer relationship is essential to the bottom line. Your ability to build strong relationship with your customers will go a long way to sustain your business. Therefore, having given them a copy of the policy, it is able to give customers the right expectations for them to be reasonable. You can avoid unnecessary conflicts. You build strong relationships, and then you can also, embed in your customers a very high level of trust in dealing with this. Now, we also say organizational structure that facilitates internal and external communication of policies, performance, and corrective actions if needed. You see, within the organizational structure, that is where we clearly see positions, define the roles, the lines of authority, the hierarchy, and what have you. In dealing with your client usually will deal with your personnel. Now, the structure that you have designed for your organization must be clearly communicated and understood by your clients. Clients should not struggle to know who to deal with. Clients should not go through trouble moving from one room to another because they do not clearly understand who they have to deal with in terms of a given level of operation or transaction. Therefore, the structure you put in place must be very clear to your clients so that they know who to deal with. Sometimes unnecessary delays occur because clients are struggling to find the required personnel to deal with that. Sometimes there are interruptions because items are missing. Within the order processing system, we see so much chaos because items, or let's say orders, have been sent to wrong units and other things. Therefore, it is essential that your organizational structure be well designed and well communicated to your clients in order to smoothen the entire process in terms of their business transaction with you. Now, we also talk about system flexibility. When we say system flexibility, it actually measures the ability of an organization to build a strong capacity to adapt to changing situations in the market. We know that there are unforeseen events in the market, or the demand is even not so certain. There are uncertainties coming from our demand and also from our supply. In our business environment in which we operate, there are uncertainties coming from the economic environment, from the legal environment, the socio-cultural issues, and what have you. And that is why constantly firms are engaged in pestle analysis. Even internally, their own circumstances. And sometimes we engage in SWOT analysis by even looking at internal issues. The essence of making your capacity flexible is that you want to easily adapt to the changing situation. Should demand increase, do we have the ability to meet demand without having to wait for a long time? Seeing that lead time is a strong measure of customer service. Should there be changes in the taste and preferences, are we able to adapt our system to produce to meet it? And that is where our operations, sometimes we look at, machines that are multi-purpose, for example. Do we have alternatives or contingency plans in terms of the capacity that we build? And capacity includes the equipment, the machinery, and even personnel available. Have we trained our personnel such that different people can even sometimes play different roles? And that is why sometimes when you go to some organization, there's even an issue of job rotation to get people to experience different skills. And by building multiple skill sets, we are making our personnel very flexible to adapt to changing situations. This is very, very important because, for example, your ability to provide reliable services will highly depend on the flexibility that you build. If people can rely on your services, usually it's because your capacity is very, very flexible. And of course, flexibility usually would attract costs. And so organizations will need to also make some level of trade-off analysis in order to provide an essential level of flexibility. Now, we also have technical or management services extended to help customers determine their needs and offering solutions. This one means that firms direct their efforts towards developing their clients. We have to understand that it's in the interest for firms to develop their supply chain partners, because we have already established the fact that the performance, all right, and then technical and management services that are extended to help customers determine their needs and offering solutions. We have already established that the profitability of a supply chain is measured by the overall performance of all the partners within the supply chain. And if your business must be sustained, it depends on the sustainability of the entire supply chain. And that is why it is very important to understand that it's in the interest of firms to have their supply chain partners developed. For example, if you are providing technical, services to your clients by, just helping them understand how things operate and they are developed, their development will further, affect positively your, organizational activities, providing various solutions. For example, if you want to operate, an EDI, it is possible because your customers are ready to use an EDI system. Without that, if they don't have the knowledge and the capacity, it is just not it is not possible to just deal with them based on the EDI. And we know the importance of using electronic data interchange in the transfer of orders. It is very fast. It has a high level accuracy. You see, so you benefit, and the fact that you can deal with multiple clients at the same time. This one will speed the entire process that you operate with. So as your clients are developing, it also helps your businesses, your business processes to also improve. And that is why firms sometimes go to the extent of providing technical and management services to their clients. We know Cocoa Board, for example, how they assist farmers. Why are they interested in just assisting farmers to develop? Obviously, if farmers develop and they produce quality cocoa, obviously it affects Cocoa Board, because we know that Cocoa Board enjoys, the premium, cocoa that it sells, a premium, price, because we know that the quality is of high, level. And therefore, if your farmers are doing well, it definitely would affect you. And that is why firms are constantly also trying to develop their clients, also their suppliers, because as your partners within the supply chain are developing, it helps to also improve your business processes. Therefore, it is very important to put in place all these transaction elements in order to have a very good, impact on the transaction elements we are about to discuss. The transaction elements of customer service are actual performances that we give to our clients. As we said, the pre-transaction elements, not all of them are directly logistics, but they are essential to be put in place to influence positively the transaction elements that we give out to your clients. There are a lot of them. We are going to see the most common ones that leaders are just providing to our clients. For example, we have what we call the product availability or a stock out level. When we say product ability, that measures an organization's ability to meet a given level of demand at a time. That is how many orders you are able to fill at a time that you have received orders. Not later, but at the time. And that is why we also say it is also the stock out level, a measure of the stock out level. That presupposes that 100% product availability means a zero stock out level, or a 95% product availability implies a stock out level of 5%. It means that the higher your product availability, the lower your stock out level. And it is a strong dimension of customer service. Customers are happy when they find out that you have goods or your services are available at the time that they visit your facility or at the time that they make an order. Nobody is glad to wait for a longer time because goods are not available and they must be ordered again, or they have to be back ordered before you can receive your item. No. And this is very essential for firms. Your ability to provide high level product availability to a large extent will influence customer retention, your customer loyalty, and your ability to even attract new customers. I have already said that when leading brands are providing essentially the same quality or price, now the determinants of the customer's purchase decision will usually move beyond price and quality, which are still important, to other variables usually centered around customer service. And one key of them is availability. Is the product available? Because when leading brands are essentially the same, what would make the client wait for a particular brand? It is what is available. And that is why now firms are putting all measures in place in order to have high levels product availability. And that is why it is very good to establish a good relationship with your clients. Because if clients are able to use the right, technology or ways of communicating their order, it can influence you to also provide high levels of product availability. Sometimes, if you even know the production schedules of your clients, you can also schedule your production to coincide with their orders, thereby providing high levels of product availability. And that is why you should make every effort to maintain a very good relationship with your clients. Hence, in the previous slides, I mentioned that technical or management services are directed towards developing your clients or helping provide solutions to them. The essence is that when they are well built, they can even influence your ability to also speed your production process in order to reduce your lead time requirements. And that means that your customer gets happy. It is not easy providing high levels of product availability if you don't put in the right measures, the right techniques. It can be very costly because most firms tend to build too much inventory because they are trying to provide high levels of customer service. And that is why we need to also understand our customers, constantly do a market, analysis or analysis of your whole market to understand their needs, the timings, the quantities, so that we don't also overly stock our items only to increase our inventory holding costs. Now we have order information availability. It is important to provide customers with information regarding the orders they have made. When they have made an order, usually it goes through a process of fulfillment. So the order fulfillment process would usually mean that customers will need to wait for some time. And waiting for some time, the customer can become a little anxious. And sometimes, for their business planning purposes, you need to constantly feed them with updates of how their orders are doing. So in the entire process of order fulfillment, you can, for example, provide them the opportunity to know where their orders have reached at every point in time. And that is why now organizations are giving opportunities for their clients to track on their goods or services. So now we see tracking devices coming in, tracking technologies. The essence is that once the customer is well informed, he would also know how to deal with his clients as well, so that your customer does not also build unnecessary inventory in the system because they are left ignorant about how their orders are doing. And then also we have system accuracy. There's one thing providing them with order information, and another thing also providing them with accurate information. Every information that you communicate to your customers, whether via the internet or the face-to-face or any other channel, it has to be very accurate. Once you communicate to clients that you have about 20 boxes of water, it has to be 20. Every information you give out must be accurate as much as possible. And that is why now most firms are investing so much in IT because of the opportunity to improve the accuracy levels of information. And so you need to make sure that every information is very accurate. It has to be very accurate, that is devoid of errors. And it has to also be devoid of ambiguity. The language should be clearly stated and communicated. Don't use unnecessary jargons that your clients do not understand. You are supposed to communicate in a language they understand, knowing their literacy levels, their social and cultural backgrounds, and even their lifestyles. And it is very, very important. The level of loyalty you build with your customers is highly influenced by how they perceive you to be trustworthy. And language is one of the ways that we can, build trust with our clients. And then other convenience. In other convenience, we are talking about how you can build a system, including processes or procedures and environment to make your clients feel very convenient when they are making an order or having a business, interaction or transaction with you. So in terms of process, how many steps must they go through before their orders are fulfilled? When there are too many processes, it discourages them. In terms of even materials or, that they have to deal with. Let's say they have to fill papers and all that. Is it very convenient? Now, with just a click, people can make their order via the internet or other forms like EDI. Is it possible to provide such services? Must your client always travel before they can make an order? And if they visit your facility, how conducive is the environment? Are they always standing to wait for their services? Do they have comfortable seats to sit? Are they engaged with other services, or let's say other things like television, or do they have magazines around to read? When they are picking the items from the shelves, do they have something they can swiftly move it? Is it so difficult to carry their goods as they are shopping, for example, at the mall? Is it possible for them to even, just order without picking items, but their orders are delivered to them once they have made the order through the internet? Are there convenient ways of making payments? Do they always have to, queue? Are there alternative ways? All these are ways of facilitating convenience in the process. When, nursing mothers have visited your facility, are there things to, engage their children or take care of their children? All these are ways of providing convenience. So convenience in terms of, material usage, in terms of processes, and also in terms of environment. We need to be able to provide high levels of convenience for our clients. Sometimes when the convenience is very good, it reduces the stress that people go through when they have to wait. But it doesn't mean we should just use the environment to still cause people to wait. We need to put in the measures to reduce the queuing systems at our facilities. But once we are still finding a way to just manage the queues, the environment itself must be very conducive to just keep the customers very happy. Then we have the order cycle. The order cycle is also known as the lead time. It's still the same thing depending on the perspective you are looking at. So the order cycle time or lead time actually measures the period that elapses between when a client orders his product till he receives the items in inventory. And this time can be very long when it is not well managed. And this is what measures one of the key measures of their satisfaction. Remember, I stated that late delivery constitutes one of the major complaints by clients. So it is how you manage the order cycle. There are step-by-step processes that we go through in order to fulfill the customer's order. How do you put in the system, the right systems to really shorten the whole period? And not only that, having promised a shorter time is not necessarily enough. But having promised a short time, most organizations should also be able to provide a consistent service. So the time, if it is short, it is good, but it has to be consistent. Otherwise, you had rather given them a longer time to be consistent. Because having promised a shorter time without consistency is worse than promising even a longer time with consistency. Because in that way, they still cannot plan. Once you are promised a shorter time, but it is varying or fluctuating, the logical client in the wake of uncertainty would still plan with the worst scenario. It means that if they are planning with the worst scenario, they are still building extra inventory to take care of the uncertainty. which means it is still an additional cost for your clients. And that is why we advise that in as much as you must make an effort to reduce the order cycle time or the lead time, you should also put in the system to provide a consistent order cycle and lead time. So now we say dependability or reliability or consistency is very key to sustaining your customer loyalty. Now, we also talk about expediting shipments. When we are expediting shipments, it means how we can speed a particular shipment. Usually, these shipments are special, goods or services. So your ability to provide a system such that you can fast track it. And sometimes maybe you are promised a normal lead time of 3 days to your clients, and that is a general lead time promise, that you have promised your clients. But beyond this, do you have a system in place to expedite special shipments? And special could be in terms of emergency goods, or usually when you have run out of stock and you are back ordering. Is it possible to expedite it? Because when you back order and you expedite these back orders, at least it reduces the frustration of your customers. If your customers don't have to wait for the normal lead time period, but it is shortened, it usually provides some level of value to your customer. And sometimes the customer feels even special. Sometimes some firms charge a little, extra, money for expediting shipment. But usually customers whose priority emphasizes, responsiveness are ready to pay for such express services. All right, then we also have transshipment. That is the ability to move goods from one location to another. Usually firms use transshipment to reduce the incidence of or to reduce obsolescence, because obsolete goods in one location can become useful in other locations. And sometimes our clients may go to another location and then there's a stock out, but we also have stock in other locations. Our ability to move these goods to our customers without having to make them go to buy the goods from that branch can also provide them with a very good service. And customers who also receive such services, some not only are they happy because of the convenience, they sometimes feel very important for receiving such a service. And then we also look at product substitution. So when we say product substitution, can we look at providing alternatives? Now we are saying that we have so many brands available, so that if your client wants a particular brand and it is not available and there are substitutes, it provides a better service to the client than just running out of stock entirely. All right. So when we talk about product substitution, we want to mean your ability to provide alternatives, so that if a particular brand that the customer requires is not available, the other, substitute to provide an essential service to the client is better than the customer go. And now that competition is so fierce, most brands are behaving nearly as substitutes, and customers usually can easily fall on other substitutes of a given product, and it's also able to help organizations retain their clients. Now, let's talk a little bit more about the order cycle, which is so essential and so important an aspect of customer service. And as I said, it is the total time from customer initiation of the order through receipt of the product or service by the client. And there can be so many elements. I told you that there are step-by-step, processes that we go through in order to fulfill the customer's order. And all these processes are part of the entire order cycle time. For example, the beginning is when the customer placing an order. And then afterwards, the order is entered, and then order is then processed. Order entry is just feeding the supplier system with the order placed by the customer. And especially when it is different from, how the customer places an order. If it doesn't place it and it's the information that is not sent directly into the system, Usually, organizations still must feed their systems with the orders that the client has placed. And then we move on to order processing. Once the orders have been fed into the system, it has to be processed by communicating to all the major stakeholders within the organization who play key roles in ensuring the order is fulfilled. And then once the order has been processed, then the order is picked and packaged for shipment at the warehouse. Then the transit time will begin, where we load the items, and the items then are sent to the client. And until the client has received the goods, the order cycle is not ended. Even when the goods are in transit, the order cycle is still not ended. So it is essential to manage the entire process to understand that until the customer has received it, the process is not ended. And so we must make every effort to ensure that when the goods are in transit, they still continue to arrive at the right time that the customer needs. Remember that the time utility is an essential measure of how well the logistics system is performing. And so the ability to ensure the goods arrive on time is one of the sources of your competitive advantage. And so this process we are talking about, without a very good system put in place, it can be very long. For example, when we look at the 6 major, stages, order processing and transmittal can even take about 2 days. Order received and entered into the system can be 1 day. And then we look at order process 1 day, order picking and packing. And when we don't have the orders at the time the order is, received, then sometimes we engage in, production to, replenish the stock in order to fulfill the order. And it can take as much as 5 days, that is on average. And then transit time can also take about 3 days, of course. It depends on the destination. And then, warehouse receiving and placing into storage by the client until it is ready for maybe to facilitate production or for resale. And so the total time on an average can even take about 13 days. And sometimes it is more. For example, if the items must cover a longer distance before the items are supplied to the client. And so this figure is just an average figure. All these are just normal averages that we are looking at. So when we look at this diagram, it's just showing the various averages, measuring the averages. So this is the total time. And the averages even imply that when the variability actually occurs, it can be longer, because 13 days of variability, 13 days of an average shows that they can vary between 4.5 days to 21.5 days. And if you are looking at approximately 22 days of variability, that is significant at times where our client's inventory status can really be affected. And therefore, most firms are now utilizing IT, integrating IT in their logistics system to really speed the entire process of fulfilling an order. So this is one example of customer service, customer order cycle, for example, the process that it goes through. For example, we can have a retail outlet where the customer orders are received, and customer order can be sent via a telephone system, and these are just the manual systems there. And if you go through a telephone system and it is received at the warehouse, then of course when it's received, the orders are processed and assembly is made. Then the orders are delivered, sometimes through the truck. Usually when it follows a normal process, you are able to use, relatively cheaper mode of transport like the truck to deliver the items. All right, let's look at another scenario. After the warehouse or the unit organization has received the orders, then if the orders, the goods are not available to just fulfill, then it means that a back ordering has to be made. So when you look at the diagram, you see a personnel making a back order. Back order means that going to make an order for the special case. Reorder is when you begin to order again the moment your reorder level is reached. But back order is making an order to deal with an incident of stock out. And that is serious, because when your back order size is not too huge to even justify, your transportation cost is an extra cost. Because when you are making your reorder, usually the quantity is so huge that you can consolidate and achieve lots of economies in your transportation costs. But when you are back ordering, usually they are in smaller quantities, and usually they don't allow for higher consolidations. And obviously, you are able to achieve higher costs. And then what happens is that when we back order, and then the back ordering items are already, they are in the state that the customer wants, then we can send it directly. Or if it has to, the back ordering means that we are ordering for raw materials, then it means the organization would have to go through order processing, by informing all stakeholders on what to do. Then it means that production must engage in production or assembling of the product if there is no stock. And then express order delivery is made. And this one means that usually within this short time, that is when we begin to use, services like expediting to fast track, the orders. And to fast track, usually we will choose a mode of transport that is relatively faster than the air if there is availability of infrastructure, right? But we know it is costly. So we might be able to meet the lead time or be closer to it if we use a relatively faster mode, but that is not without an extra cost before it gets to the final consumer. So how do we engage this whole process to ensure that we are able to reduce it? Now that is the trend, and organizations are even employing advanced order processing systems and building strong IT into their logistics operations to improve on visibility, to make things very fast. So for example, this is a typical example of picking and packing, situation in an organization like Amazon Distribution Center in Swansea, South Wales. So when you go there, you see it's a large facility with different items. And so as they begin to receive the orders with an invoice, they pick the items. So when you have a very large facility like Amazon, how do you pick the orders very, very fast in order to speed the entire process of delivery? And that is why we know that it is difficult without an IT. So you will need to usually, integrate IT into your system to, speed the whole process, and not just speeding it, to also ensure for high level accuracy and consistency in service delivery. And so we can also see another one here where we see another picking and packaging scenario also here with different personnel, placed or positioned at different units to pick, specific items and all that. Now let's look at before we move to the post-transaction element, I must say that we are going to look at this IT integration into detail in our next model. In our next model, we are going to look at logistics information system. And by logistics information system, we want to see how IT is really enabling logistics, processes to improve in terms of both efficiency and effectiveness. And at that point, we will even appreciate it more, how the order cycle can be reduced through the use of IT. So let's look at a few of the post-transaction elements. So firms also go to an extent of providing after-sales services. And after-sales services, it includes even installation, going there to install the equipment that they have bought, warranty. Sometimes they provide a warranty. Some can provide a warranty of, let's say, 1 year or a little more, where they just attend to in case of any deviation. They will just try and, sometimes some people even replace the whole product if you meet their requirements. There are also alterations that can be done, especially for little problems. They can also do a few alterations. Some also provide repairs when, especially in the automobile industry, sometimes when your vehicle breaks down or has a problem, it can be sent to these organizations for repair. And sometimes these same organizations have lots of service parts in order to provide services to you. One of the things that, measure, a product quality, for example, is based on availability of service. We call that serviceability. Should there be a problem, do we really get access to parts to service, or we struggle before? It's a measure of that. And especially in the automobile industry, most, organizations provide service parts so that their clients can buy in order to just repair and service their vehicles. Then we also have product tracing. Product tracing It's where organizations sometimes, just call back. For example, sometimes they trace to make sure that if there is a problem in anywhere, they can bring back the product and just solve. Like Toyota some time ago did massive recall because of quality issue. And so sometimes they go back in time to trace and find out all products with problems and just solve. So that is part of our product tracing. So product trace, they trace it to even the last person in order to just call it back. So we call that tracing, product trace. They trace it to make sure that they find out all the products they have problems in order to recall. Sometimes it is recalled and then refunded or recalled for repair purposes. And then we also have customer claims, complaints, and returns being attended to. And this is why organizations essentially need to develop a plan for their reverse logistics, so that when there are complaints, when customers want to make various claims, they will be able to do that. And or when there are returns. And of course, you need to do a lot of gatekeeping here to avoid unnecessary returns in the system. We have already stated that when managing the reverse flow, it is relatively more difficult than the forward flow. And so you need to engage in lots of gatekeeping to avoid unnecessary returns coming back into the supply chain. Then sometimes organizations provide what we call temporary replacement of products. That is during the time a product is being repaired, some organizations can give replacement for them to use for a short time, or what we call product loaning during the service or repair period, so that the customers don't have to go through too much frustration whilst waiting. This is usually used for in terms of the automobile industry, when your car is being repaired for some number of days or weeks, so that you don't get frustrated. Sometimes an alternative is given to use for the short period of time. All right. Now let's look at how we can establish a customer service strategy. It is important. You don't just do well with customer service just because you believe in it, or you think that you can use it to compete in the market. Without a clear customer service strategy, it can be very difficult to even sustain a very good customer service you provide to your clients. So customer service strategy aims at establishing the right customer service policies for the right customers in support of an overall marketing strategy. Each customer has its own requirements. You need to understand what your client wants in order to establish the right policies commensurate with your needs of your customers. Remember, all that we do in the supply chain, every strategy we develop must be in line with our competitive strategy, which also is reflective of customer priorities. When they are not aligned, it may be good in its own right, but you will still fail in the market. So these are some suggested methods in establishing a right customer service strategy. For example, we can look at competitive benchmarking. Look at your industry, what your competitors are providing, for example, to especially when you are competing the same market or segment. You can look at what is being done in order to just develop your own customer service. Sometimes you can even do some modifications on what they are doing right now, and it will help you to compete in the market. You cannot neglect, you can't neglect understanding what your competitors are doing in the market, especially if you want to have a higher edge over them. You need to first of all know even what they are providing, and even learn of the strategies, because you want to compete. So given the prevailing competition, what can you do beyond what your competitors are offering? And so that is competitive benchmarking. That is setting standards based on what industry players are also doing. Then determining customer service levels based on customer reactions to stock out at the retail level. So as you are experiencing different customers at different points in time, you can study the way they react to stock out situations. Some would complain, some will have their faces changed, some will even threaten a suit and all kinds of things. So based on their reactions, from very simple to very aggressive clients, once you study their reactions, you'll be able to set different customer service levels for them and the right one. For example, when people are queuing and they are complaining and talking too much, it can even lead you to know that you have to reduce the time. So it is very, very important. And then cost or revenue trade-offs. You cannot ignore the issue of cost. We have already established that we apply a systems perspective to managing logistics management, because logistics management comprises many components, and these components have interdependent relationships, and this interdependent relationship brings up a lot of trade-off consideration, because whilst trying to improve an area, it usually might have an adversarial effect on other areas. Therefore, what do? We need to be mindful of cost. Like I said, sometimes some firms want to increase their product availability and they exaggerate by providing too many stock. But we know that, of course, when you have so many inventory available, your product availability usually will be very high. But having had higher stock itself would also attract so many costs of inventory, like the capital cost, which is the opportunity cost of investing in the inventory at a time. That is, it's going to cost you the possible rate of return you could have gained from investing in an alternative, investment or business. And also, if you borrowed money to invest in the inventory, the interest you are paying is also costing you. And then also, there are so many risks associated with keeping stock, like the risk of theft, like burglary, like fire outbreak, obsolescence, the shrinkage, damages, spoilage. All these are costs, the risk. You stand the risk of, experiencing all these problems or costs in the system. And also, if you have to rent a place to keep them, we know that usually the more quantities you keep, the more you have to pay for the space. And if you have the space varying with the quantity, obviously keeping too high inventory levels will not be, a logical approach to go, because that will not help your business to be sustained economically over an appreciable point in time. And then also, we know that there's a risk of service. There's a cost of service. Sorry, you have to be paying services like cleaning, the lighting system, even the personnel to guard, against issues of theft and what have you. All these services, even insurance and what have you. And so you need to make the right trade-off analysis. We know that when you improve customer service level, it helps to improve on the market share and attract more revenue to improve on profitability. That argument is well established, but not without cost. So looking at the revenue, compare against cost in order to make the right decision. You need to make a cost revenue trade-off analysis to see the fair balance. What an appreciable level of customer service must be maintained to also optimize cost. And then also, with this trade-off analysis, you will need to first of all find out what customers' priority is. If customers prioritize responsiveness, usually they are ready to pay for that. If their priority is on cost reduction, it means you need an efficient strategy. You can't just set any customer service level at all when your strategy emphasizes efficiency. Now, these we are very mindful of them. And then we have what we call the ABC or Pareto analysis of customer service. Different customers have their different levels of customer service requirements. Like I even said, some customers prioritize efficiency, others responsiveness. Different products contribute differently to profitability. So you may need to do categorization. Categorizing your clients according to their priorities is very important. Setting 95% customer service to customer A will not be the same as customer B. So there are levels of importance based on their contribution to profitability. Some clients are ready to pay for higher levels of convenience. Some people want so high customized customer service. Therefore, you need to find out a way of categorizing. And in the Pareto analysis, we say that categorize them into the A or B or C, depending on their contribution to profitability or the value addition, and provide them with a different customer service level. For example, even when we are traveling, we know that if you are using the air, we have categories. We have the business class, we have the economy. That is an example of that. How much are they willing to pay for a given service? And what is the degree of convenience required by different clients? And how much are they ready to pay for that? You cannot provide the same service to all kinds of clients when they are paying essentially the same amount. And this would mean that categorizing can also help deal with issues of too much cost within the system. Then you need to also find a way to establish customer relationships. Customer relationship management is so important. A good relationship itself helps to understand customer needs. Customers are more willing to communicate their needs with ease when they have a strong relationship. Without relationship, the trust level is not very strong. So customers tend to be more honest with very strong relationships. And most customers will just try and even give a lot of advice on how you can improve on your customer service. So if you are developing a customer service strategy, one sure way to go is to understand what customers even perceive to be customer service. What is of value to them? Given different types of service, what is their priority? So your strategy can be very effective if you really know the needs of your clients through engaging in very healthy relationship, and they themselves can also support how you are able to perform with your various transaction elements through the relationship that you build with your clients. So like I said, the cost revenue trade-off is essential in marketing and logistics. The upper part actually shows the 4 P's. That is the product, the price, the place, and promotion. And the lower part actually has to do with the logistics components, for which we know the place element interfaces between marketing and logistics. So even looking at the logistics aspect, I will just speak about it briefly because it's been well, explained previously. For example, the arrows show that they are bi-directional, showing that there is an interdependent relationship among the various components of the logistics system. Seeing that means that any level of customer service you set, you cannot neglect its possible effect on all the other components. If you want higher levels of customer service, usually it would mean that high levels of inventory must be kept. And that is why you need to do a trade-off analysis among the various components of your logistics system in order to achieve a fair balance or the right balance amongst them. Sometimes some organizations go through difficulties in providing very effective customer service because they do not understand that there are some impediments to the entire process. Today, we want to also look at some of these impediments so that we can develop, measures to overcome them. Sometimes some organizations fail to target specific segments. Your market comprises different kinds of customers with different backgrounds, sociocultural backgrounds. Some have different, social classes, yes. And even the gender differences would even influence the choice of products. And sometimes the aged will have their different preference. When you compare to that of the young, you need to understand that there are differences in clients, and these differences have so many, multiple sources, which you need to understand. And that is why in marketing, market segmentation is very necessary, and effort directed towards, serving your customers or satisfying them very well. So sometimes some people fail and they just try and, set the same customer service to all kinds of clients within the market. No. When you are serving a larger market, it usually would require that you put them into different segments of different, or similar clients. When you have similar clients, in terms of clients with essentially the same or similar needs, you are better able to serve your market than when you put all of them together. So sometimes you're unable to differentiate service level because the market is put totally. Sometimes what the males will want usually would be different from what females will want, even in terms of color. We all know these things. So the choice is the same product, but even the package, the style, the design of the package and the color is enough to, cause somebody to pick a product or not. And we just need to appreciate all these things. So what people value to be of quality depends on the customer, and we need to have understanding and segment. Sometimes some also create unrealistic customer service expectations by promising faster delivery orders after that whatever information you give out must be accurate. Whenever expectation differs from actual experience, there is a service gap, and it creates a lot of dissatisfaction in your clients. And that is why sometimes you don't get customer loyalty, because the moment customers begin to doubt you, they don't trust you, there's no transparency. It doesn't build their confidence to even deal with you. And in the incidents that there are substitutes, the rational consumer will choose other substitutes over you. And you need to be very mindful to set reasonable, targets or expectations. And that is why I said you previously that having developed your policy, communicate with your client, but it has to be very realistic. If you don't have the capacity to deliver at a certain performance, you don't just state it just because you want to, just communicate that you do. No. What if you want a particular performance? It requires an appreciable level of investment in resources. You build the capacity for that. Your personnel must have the knowledge, the skill, and the expertise to perform. And when you don't have it, you cannot promise according to that. When you already have been too many breakdowns, when your trucks are moving and there are too many breakdowns, you cannot just make unnecessary promises. When you cannot trust your suppliers, you don't just make too many promises to your clients when you are not sure. So even the degree of uncertainty in the market can even influence how you promise, unless of course you built a very strong, what we call the flexible system, which is able to adapt easily to the dynamic issues that are coming in the market. And so you don't have to set unreasonable targets just because your competitors are setting it. You just have to be very reasonable and just set. You remember that in business, we say that your objectives must be very smart, specific, measurable, achievable, and realistic. Given realistic working conditions, is it achievable? You know that we have constraints. Some constraints are within our control. Some are just outside of our control. We only try and just manage our systems to just adapt to the changing situations. So you need to try and set targets that are very realistic, given realistic, working conditions. And then we have some ignoring perceived industry practices and an inability to tune into the competitive environment. You are competing with others in the market. You cannot just ignore them. And you realize that sometimes what competitors are giving might be what your customers are prioritizing. You don't just say, I'm choosing a different way because you want to be different. Differentiation is not just choosing another way other than your client. Differentiation, it means that given what is required, how do you distinguish your offering? So when speed, for example, is a priority for your customers, you don't just say, I'm not choosing speed, but I'm talking about product variety. No, that is not what it means to have differentiation. You are saying that build uniqueness, but it should reflect what your clients desire. But building the uniqueness, everybody is speeding its process. How do you uniquely speed your process such that your competitors cannot replicate your effort? That is what we mean by differentiation. So that means that you cannot ignore what your competitors are doing. So whilst you want to differentiate yourself, you must even know what you are doing. And sometimes people ignore entirely what others are doing. And once they try and find their own means, they try and, fail entirely. An inability to determine competitive service levels here. Sometimes people don't know what is even competing with others the right way. There are so many ways of providing service. But of all the ways, which ones are so competitive? Which variables compete with other variables? It is very important to know that. And sometimes some organizations lack adequate research on the levels of customer service that is necessary for profitable long-range business development. Customer service is a domain that requires a lot of research to, one, understand your customers themselves, the variables that influence their demand. Because when these variables are changing, you should know that their demand will also change, all things being equal. You must also understand the means. You must research to find out the means, the methods, the technology of fulfilling customer service levels. Sometimes you must even go into the global environment, a bigger environment, to understand different alternatives or options available to meet a certain service level. And that requires research. Now, some organizations have whole research and development units, not just because it just exists, but they research into things, they explore, they want to find possibilities. Some want to find out ways of even doing new things without necessarily hurting the product quality. So, how do you engage in research? And that is why you need to develop relation with your client to aid you in your research efforts. Some go into the market, they do a whole consumer survey, market survey. They survey the market to understand consumer behavior. Because you know the behavior is not certain. But what actually is causing the uncertainty, you must invest in resources to understand. Why would people want to change their taste and preferences? One variable, even though we know it is changing, yes, something might have caused it. And that is what research, for example, will aid you to understand. You realize that there are some people, even when they are, most people, when they are even growing, their taste and preferences will change. So sometimes knowledge acquisition can influence the change. Social cultural background, sometimes even exposure in different environments can cause a change. As you do this research over time, you can easily understand the variables that are causing these changes. Now, if you want to improve on customer service performance, then you will need to engage in a lot of research, and not just ordinary research. It has to be very thorough in order to understand your customer needs and the needs, what also they prioritize among the various needs. What is their greatest priority, so that your customer service priority will also be reflective of their needs. Then you also have to set service levels that make realistic trade-offs between revenues and expenses. I have already explained this in detail. We are not ignoring the issues of efficiency. We exist to also achieve some level of optimization. So you need to make the right kind of trade-offs. If your business has to be sustained, you need to achieve a right balance between the revenue and then your expenditure. Making use of the latest technology in other processing systems can be very, very helpful. There are a lot of them. In the next, model, we are going to look at logistics information system. Now, if you are not ready to use it, you can't just compete in the market unless you are a monopolistic organization. Then, measure and evaluate the performance of individual logistics activities. You must constantly, evaluate and measure your performance. If there are deviations, you need to correct. Remember, in our definition of logistics management, we made mention of the fact that it involves a managerial process of planning, implementing, and also control. So in the control, it's part of the control function to evaluate your performance in order to take corrective, measures to deal with that. You must constantly, even your customer service itself, constantly measure how you're doing, constantly engage in a discussion with your clients to find out if it is going well. What you are doing today that is very good may not necessarily be the same tomorrow, because things are changing. Technology for tomorrow is different from today's. Therefore, the performance we expect tomorrow will not necessarily be the same, given that technology is changing. Your competitors may be offering better. All right. So you need to understand that constant evaluation help you to maintain the right customer service performance. Therefore, to develop a customer service plan, you can go through these 5 major elements to establish a good customer service plan. Then from time to time, you would need to engage in a lot of evaluation and review. First and foremost, you need to understand customer needs, wants, and expectations. Find out what they want. What do they prioritize? Do they prioritize convenience? Do they prioritize speed? Do they prioritize product variety? Do they prioritize consistency, reliability? What is even the order of their priority in all these things? Product availability or stock out level measurements, expediting of shipment. Do you provide back ordering services? What product substitution do you do? in order of their priority, you need to also know them. It is very, very essential, and it's very good to even know the variables that influence their needs. Is it in terms of prices of related goods? Is it in terms of the nature, the quality levels of related goods, in terms of substitute or complement? Is it in terms of the income levels of their clients? Do people change their needs and wants because their income levels are changing? Obviously. Is it based on technology? Is it based on economic conditions? Is it based on the fact that now they are changing in terms of being single to, the marriage because the family size is increasing, and it is also influenced, or what is influencing that? You know that we have learned in management that our needs keep on changing, and at some point in time, our major priority will be on basic things. At a point in time, we move on to even begin to look at self-actualization and other periods. So we look at the whole hierarchy. And all these things are important to understand the needs of clients. Usually when people are doing well, it's not the basic need that is of priority, because they've already met it and they can meet it. So they are looking at sometimes a sense of belonging. So how can they belong? So they have moved into, let's say, even beyond safety, to social needs, the things that will make them feel belong into society. And sometimes they want to move way beyond the social to really even the self-actualization, when they really feel that they have really, gotten to the highest point in life. All these are variables you have to look at. And then we have, customer service goals and objectives. Set clear goals. What do you want to achieve? Just deciding to, have, a customer service strategy or plan doesn't mean you just want to do it. What is your clear goal and objective? And remember that the objectives must be smart, specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and what? Time bound. Remember, you need to be very realistic when it comes to your goal and objective setting. And then you need to develop customer service policies. Develop customer service policies for your enterprise. And this can also depend on industry standards and benchmarks, as we have explained already. Then you need to engage in employee training and policies. In the policies that you develop. If you don't train your employees to understand these policies and appreciate, and even have it as a philosophy, they might not be able to, perform well in terms of what they are doing. They need to be trained. And this training has to be constantly done periodically. You need to upgrade their skill and expertise on how they can provide the best service to your clients. And then finally, you have to do customer service evaluation. You monitor your progress. You find out how you are performing. Are there ways of even improving on what is existing? You need to constantly engage in evaluation in order to provide the best one. So in order for you to learn about your customer needs or wants and expectations, try and do lots of survey, interviewing, or focus group discussion to find out what your consumers want, and then review customer comments and complaints that come over time. And that is why sometimes you can build a whole suggestion box. Let them put their complaints there. And as you begin to review, you'll understand exactly what their needs are. Ask, employees to, the observations that they made, or just tell them to be observing customers, behaviors towards the various services they provide. Then evaluate sales and inventory data for returns and special orders. Constantly review in terms of number and the type that really come into the organization. And evaluate wait times for activities, checkouts, and register and phone calls. And then consider the service provided by your competitors, so that you can build a service that is so unique or different from what they are providing. Because you've established that if you can provide a very unique or different service, what we call differentiation, then it can be a major source of competitive advantage. At this point, we come to the end of this model. In this model, we have looked at what customer service is. We have understood its value addition. We have also understood customers are the lifeblood of businesses, and so we need to pay attention to the services we provide. And then we have also understood that how we treat our customers will go a long way to influence customer retention and also even attract newer ones. We have looked at the various importance of having a good customer service in place. We have looked at three broad categories of customer service elements: the pre-transaction elements, the transaction, and the post-transaction elements. We've tried to also look at how we can establish a customer service strategy, also improve on our customer service performance. We've looked at some of the impediments to effective customer service performance and how we can also develop our own strategy by going through 5 major steps. And we've also learned about some of the ways that we can go through to understand the needs of our clients. I hope that we have really appreciated this model, and we are going to implement the various, strategies we've discussed in our business processes in order to help our businesses grow and increase our profitability. Thank you for being my audience. We are going to look at Model 4 the next time we meet, and in Model 4, we are going to look at logistics information systems. See you next time. Bye.